Welcome to the Sky News Daily. Niall Paterson here in Birmingham, in fact, at the International Convention Centre for the Conservative Party Conference. I have to say, of all the convention centres I have been to in my time, this is amongst the weirdest. It's kind of like a steampunk Hogwarts in the sense that you've got all these different little bridges crossing in front of us, pipes everywhere for some unknown reason, and I'm reliably informed by my producer Emma that there is something of the film Hunger Games about this place. I'm standing in the central atrium looking at 4 gigantic posters dangling from the ceilings, one saying vote Kemi, another saying serve lead act, that's Tom Tugendhat's suggestion, join Jenrick, and of course hashtag JC24 for James Cleverly. Those of course the 4 leadership candidates battling it out to be the next Conservative leader and presumably to fight the next general election, although given this is the Conservative Party you can't bet on that 100%. We're just about to go in and see who we can find to try and take the temperature of this conference, because with all the focus on who will be the next leader, there's an awful lot of inward looking, dare I say it, navel gazing going on, and I wonder what people think about that. Would you look who it is? Penny Mordaunt, formerly, we should say, MP for Portsmouth North, I believe, and she was herself actually a leadership candidate for the Conservative Party at one point, lost her seat in the general election. Let's see if she'll talk to me. Penny Mordaunt, lovely to see you. Tell me, what is it like at Conservative Conference when the leader isn't here and there's speculation about who's going to be the next one?
No, I'm sure you've heard this from other people, but it's remarkably upbeat. I think we're generally a cheery lot, and I think part of the reason for that is that we're looking forward. The past is behind us. We've got an opportunity now and some breathing space to do the deep thinking that the nation needs, and we're looking at having a new leader, and I think people are excited about that. So it's been a cheery few days.
Genuinely, whenever that next general election comes, can the Conservatives get themselves back into power? Really?
All is possible in politics, even when you're facing big majorities. But what you have to do is demonstrate that your sole care is your service and duty to this country. That's what I'm looking for, and that's what we need in a new leader, someone that can reconnect us with the nation we serve.
And I have just spotted Conservative commentator Tim Montgomerie, a person I know very well. We've been coming to conferences, it would seem, for me about 2 decades. For you, how long have you been doing this?
My first party conference was 1989.
Oh dear.
It was my first year at university, and I came for what was Margaret Thatcher's 10th anniversary party conference, and I stood on chairs with then my student buddies Robert Halfon, David Burrows and Sajid Javid, some of names you may have.
Names we know indeed.
And we stood on the chairs shouting 10 more years. I probably shouldn't be confessing this now, should I?
Probably not, but I suspect that the mood at that conference was somewhat different to the mood at this one. I mean, tell me, how's it been for you so far?
Well, look, it's a really odd party conference because people always think of it as a political occasion, and of course it's a political occasion, but this is where you meet your mates. Those of us who are steeped in politics, and I'm too steeped in politics, you see a lot of your friends every year. So it's always fun. I think it's different this year because, I think for 14 years, the Tory party's been at the centre of all sorts of squalls and controversies, and party conference has therefore been caught up in that. This year, there's almost like, well, obviously we want to be back in power as soon as possible, but this year there's almost like a burden is lifted off the shoulders of the party. We can actually escape being in the sort of centre of gunfire from the media and the public, just for 1 year at least.
Yeah, but instead of the gunfire coming from the press, for example, or indeed the broadcast media, it's blue on blue, isn't it, at a time like this? I mean, we've got 4 leadership candidates. All of them desperately want to be the next leader of the Conservative Party and potentially the Prime Minister at some point in the future. Don't tell me there haven't been dirty tricks going on.
Well, there may have been dirty tricks. I'm not going to comment on dirty tricks as much as you may want me to. But you know what? I'd like a bit more blue on blue. I think one thing that's weird about this, we've got hustings and we've got speeches and we've got endless interviews. but we haven't had a proper debate between the candidates. I'm missing that sort of direct confrontation between people, saying they all want to be party leader, and they should be saying very clearly why they think they're better than the other one.
OK, this is an interesting one. Just over there is Anne-Marie Trevelyan. She was MP for Berwick on Tweed, and I think is somehow connected to one of the leadership contenders' campaigns. The reason I say it's interesting is, look, if I didn't know that, I'd say on her neck is a heart with the word Tom in it. I'm going to go and investigate. I see that you're sporting a tattoo there on your neck. You might want to explain exactly this, because it's not traditional Conservative decoration, I have to say.
It's never been decoration for me at all. I've never had a tattoo in my life, but I am chairing Tom Tugendhat's leadership campaign. I'm very proud and fond of him, and I think he is absolutely the leader that we need for the Conservative Party and indeed for the country. And the team had great fun, knowing that at a conference having fun merchandise for delegates is all part of the fun. They came up with how many things they could think of, which went with Tugend something. So there are hats, there are tats, there are there's also, I can't remember what they are, there's loads of them. Anyway, tats was one of them, and being the chief cheerleader, I was asked if I'd have one, so I thought, well, do you know what, I promise it will come off, they said, so I've kept it, so
I'll keep my fingers crossed that it does in fact come off, because it's not just you that will be upset by that. Look, talk to me just a little bit about the point of this conference, the purpose of it, because ultimately, at the end of the day, no matter who the next leader of this party is, you need to unite. Otherwise, we could be seeing another election loss the next time up.
Absolutely. The leader that the party members choose, who are, of course, here in large numbers, and indeed greater numbers than I was expecting, and with an optimism and a forward-looking mindset, which I also wasn't expecting, are very clear that they want to win. We could have found ourselves, we had a very bruising election on the 4th of July, and, the country said, enough, we'd like something else for a bit, you need to all go away and, work out what you stand for. So we need a leader that can restore that clarity to the Conservative Party, restore trust in us as that natural party of government that we have been for 200 years, and then really get out there and present it. And to do that, you're absolutely right, it has to be someone who sits in the centre ground of Conservative policy that can bring together all the different voices.
Aren't there more fundamental differences than that there are genuine differences as to what conservatism actually means amongst the leadership candidates?
I'm not sure that I'd agree with you there. I think they are, I know them all very well. I've worked with all of them in the last few years in different government roles and as colleagues, as MPs. I think we are all very clearly Conservatives. What does that mean? We believe in, freedom of choice, keeping a smaller state, allowing citizens to spend more of their money with a lower tax regime, understanding that growth is at the heart of what makes the country richer, that allows us to fund our healthcare, our education, our law and order and our armed forces, all those things. It's really straightforward, but we believe in doing it through trust and empowering the citizen, the business, to do that leadership, not having more state control. And I think all candidates are very comfortably in that space. Some of them are focusing on particular areas of policy. I don't know why, that's their choice.
Iain Duncan Smith, where is the Conservative Party at the moment? Where is it going?
Well, we lost an election very badly. So this is a moment to take stock and to figure out where the challenges come. Why was it so bad? What actually happened? What were their reasons? Not to assume we know, but to understand better. And then to build back, really, to show that the Conservative Party has restated its views, but most of all to understand where the public are, who could have voted for us and didn't, what's the ground they occupy, and for us to move on to that ground to support them, rather than be telling them what they should be doing.
But with the focus on the change in leadership, has there been enough examination of what the Conservative Party should be standing for, and indeed what people outside the conference genuinely want from a Conservative Party?
No, not by a long way. To my mind, the leadership election shouldn't be about policy issues, because we're in opposition for, let's say, 5 years. Things will move and change. What we need to understand is, what do the public feel about the Conservative Party that made them so determined, and they were determined, to have us out. They didn't just desert us, they deserted us with a very clear agenda.
The election was catastrophic for the Conservative Party. Do you see a way back in one Parliament?
There has to be a way back within one Parliament, because if we're not on our way back within one Parliament, we're on our way out.
Can you put your phone down so we can do the podcast?
No, I can't. This is how I pod.
Is it?
It's very deconstructed.
Right, okay, here we go. Cam, silence.
Right, we're podding.
Here we go. Shh, just shush. Okay, so we've spoken to a few people out there in the conference. Let's speak to someone that you will know very well, of course, our political editor, Beth Rigby. And you're beaming away.
I love doing the pod with you, Neil.
I thought you were about to say you loved conferences.
I love conferences. I love pods. I love beauty contests. It's got this has got everything I need and want.
You mentioned beauty contest there. I mean, how goes it? I mean, because that is all this party conference is, ultimately, isn't it? Maybe I'm being a bit cynical.
Were you around in 2005
Yeah,
when the
I was there.
Okay, you were there.
No,
so
remind everyone what happened.
I would quite like to ask you about this, because what happened in 2005 was it was post-election win by Labour, the third election win, and the party, the Conservatives, had lost 3 elections on the bounce, and they were picking a new leader.
Yeah, Michael Howard was the outgoing.
Howard was the kind of caretaker guy, outgoing, and then there was David Davis, the kind of incumbent candidate, the guy that was kind of going to take the crown, and then there was the young buck, David Cameron.
This little-known kind of backbench MP, who I think up until that point, the most senior thing he had done was serve in the Home Affairs Committee.
Exactly.
It was the weirdest week of my life. It was the weirdest week of my life, because it was just this most tremendous period of navel-gazing, but navel-gazing with stilettos in hand to stab your opponents. There were dirty tricks, there was infighting, and then ultimately you had a leader who steadied the ship. But it was very, very strange.
So this makes me feel a lot better that you said that, because this has been my experience of this conference. We were putting together a television report about what was the story of the day, and I was really struggling, because I'm like, what is the story? There's no coherence of message. This is a party that is completely looking inwards at itself. The things that they are discussing here in fringes and the leadership contenders are not what the country are discussing.
Nope.
But it's what you said, which is, it is weird. I have never experienced this, where I've come to conference without a party leader in which they are vying for position. But by God, they're having fun, Neil.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm like, you've just had the worst election defeat in, over 120 years?
I have been completely struck by just how much optimism and bonhomie and smiley faces, to put it like that.
They're loving it.
Are they just simply delusional, or do they not remember what has just happened?
Do you know, a senior Tory, we had our Sky News gathering last night, where we have an event and lots of journalists come and politicians come. We do it every year at conference. And I was talking to one senior Conservative, and I said, why is everyone in such a good mood? Because, like, you've got 121 MPs. You have a Starmer in power. Okay, he's having a bit of a bumpy ride, but he's got a massive majority. And they just said, Conservatives love nothing better than plotting and leadership contests, and they are in their happy place. I think also, in more sincerely, for delegates, the ones I've spoken to, they love the discussion of ideas.
Yeah.
So at the moment, it's like, throw it all up in the air, everyone have a discussion about what is conservatism, what's the direction of the party, and they're quite enthused by it. I think that the cold, hard winter will come quite soon once they've picked a leader, and then they're into the hard yards of opposition. But at the moment, they are absolutely, the atmospherics here are great.
Do you know what, Beth? Let's just take a very quick breather, because after the break, when we return, we are going to go into some depth about the 4 candidates to be the next Conservative leader. Welcome back, still here in Birmingham at the ICC with our political editor Beth Rigby, taking you through the runners and riders for the next Conservative leader. Tom Tugendhat, Kemi Badenoch, Robert Jenrick, and of course James Cleverly. Sky's done a bit of polling,
Yes.
and as I say, it's not completely open, but you know, any one of them could still win it.
Yeah, look, from the outset of this race, we've all been saying it's really too hard to call. It's too tough to call. There's not an obvious front runner, and it's all to play for. And what's been fascinating in this beauty parade is the way in which Rob Jenrick actually has kind of built the momentum. He's turning up, he's match fit, talking about a beauty parade. I swear at the rally yesterday he was wearing bronzer and blusher.
Not Tugendhat.
Not Tugendhat. We will get onto the merch. He is match fit. He's practicing without notes. And then we did some polling exclusively for Sky News. My colleagues Sam and Tom Larkin put in that together. YouGov polling of party members, and it's showing that Rob Jenrick is now within touching distance with the members to Kemi Badenoch. Now, remember, Rob Jenrick is also in the lead with MPs. There's now some chat around here, Neil, about whether or not in third place with MPs is a joint tie of Cleverly and Tom Tugendhat. Could it be that one folds into the other, maybe Tom into James, and then James actually parachutes over Kemi? I'm getting a bit ahead of myself. But the point is that this is all open to interpretation, like who gets to the final two, who wins it. It's too close to call.
Just in terms of the candidates themselves, I suspect that people who are not as closely involved in politics as you are tend to view Conservatives as a big homogenous bunch, but there are different churches within Conservatism, of course. You were telling me a little story. You were out last night and someone was sorting the Tory leadership candidates into their Hogwarts houses.
Well, it started off, I was having a conversation with a very senior Conservative, and I said, this conference is weird. And they said, I was like, I can't really find the strand, you know. And they said, it's a bit like the Hunger Games. And what they meant was, you know, when you walk into the hall, I can't demonstrate this because we're on a pod, but visually, there's these giant banners hanging from the ceilings with the face of each candidate. And it is a bit like kind of Game of Thrones, Hunger Games, like the banners of the different houses. And then I was like, oh, this is fun. And I said, if you put your sorting hat on, who would go to which house? So we had quite a lot of fun with that. And the conclusion of this person, not my conclusion, I am obviously not as knowledgeable as this person that knows more intimately, was that Rob Jenrick was Slytherin, ambition.
Yes, okay.
Kemi Badenoch was Gryffindor, courage.
Okay.
James Cleverly was Hufflepuff, likeable.
Probably.
Likeable and loyal.
Yeah, I can see
And
it.
Tom Tugendhat was Ravenclaw because basically we'd probably had too much to drink. And
You'd run out. That was the one that was left.
No, but Ravenclaw, I looked it up this morning because I got very into this. And Ravenclaw is like curiosity and intellectual ability, and he is quite a big brain, isn't he? So I'm quite happy with the sorting hat. What do you think, Neil?
I was going to ask, which house would you be in, Beth?
I don't know, Neil. What do you think?
Slytherin all the way.
Actually, this person actually gave me Gryffindor, but said that I like to hang out with the Slytherines.
Do you know what? Let's go through the candidates then. I would have said up until this conference, Kemi Badenoch was the favourite. I'm not so sure that's the case now because there have been some missteps, maternity pay, and of course those comments that she made about the superiority of different cultures.
There's a few things going on here. Number one, I would say, and I've covered all of the campaigns. Jenrick was kind of like a bit of an outsider, but you could see early on this year actually resigning over immigration, understanding that this was going to be like Boris Johnson understood about Brexit, that this was going to be the vehicle on which the party might pick a next leader.
He saw this. He saw this coming.
So he's politically got good antennae. Number one. He's also just run this insanely competitive and slick campaign. So it's like no summer holidays for him, campaigning over the country, the makeup, the match fit, right? And then in contrast, you've had Kemi Badenoch, who was at the beginning of this the front runner, who just didn't get out of the traps as quickly as him. And as you said, Neil, the thing about Kemi, the thing that appeals to some very senior Conservatives, I think she's got more shadow cabinet endorsements than anyone else, is that she is a charismatic person, right? You might not like what she has to say. Some people do, some people don't. But she has that thing that is a bit, I'm sort of sparky. I'm sort of doing that thing where I'm sort of
You're rubbing
my fingers because it's hard to sort of put it into words, but she has something that does cut through. She has a way of communicating that has an authenticity about it, right? The problem that she has got is she communicates in a way that can be, I would argue, and she would not like this, but can be a bit sloppy in that she's asked a question, she answers a slightly different question, and then she blames the journalists. And my point is, like, if you want to lead a party, just be clearer in your communication. She then says, I'm misunderstood. And Tory MPs are looking at it going, am I going to be in a world where I have to come out and defend stuff that Kemi has said as our leader? I don't want to get into this battle. And also, just as a bigger point, who in the country is talking about maternity pay being excessive, the minimum wage being too high?
And
that's another thing.
the primacy of liberal democracy.
The primacy of liberal democracy, or culture wars, right? What the country wants to talk about, what voters want to talk about, is the cost of living and NHS appointments. So the point is that it's not. It hasn't done her well in this contest.
Well, what's Robert
right?
Jenrick up to then? Banging on about the SAS and extrajudicial killings.
So then we've had a bit of Rob Jenrick on this sort of stuff. He's had a bit of a backlash where he's opened up a window in which Tom Tugendhat can attack him. And should I say also, it's all getting a bit nasty, actually. The threads are being pulled now because it's getting to decision time, right? And what Rob Jenrick has done in this campaign, going back to immigration, is he has made leaving the European Convention on Human Rights and the way in which that affects UK domestic law or decision making, he is the clearest on this. He's made it leaving the ECHR is essential to take back control of our borders. It's like a rerun of a Brexit argument. The party members love it. The other candidates are more ambivalent on it. And he's just doubling down on it. But
again, this goes to the point I was making about this being entirely inward-looking. I mean,
exactly.
Who is talking about Article
That's
14 of the ECHR?
That's exactly the point I made to him when I interviewed him yesterday. I said, the country are not talking about... And then actually, Rob Buckland, who is a former cabinet minister who lost his seat, he said to me then, he said, the country is not sitting in the dog and duck talking about Article 14 of the European Convention on Human Rights. Like, get with the programme, stop being weird, start talking about what the country wants to talk about.
Let's talk though about the other two. And you would say that the two have already discussed were more to the right in the Conservative Party than Tugendhat and James Cleverly. Let's start with Cleverly then. I mean, he's been on Message, has been talking about the reasons that the election defeat was quite so catastrophic. Anything more than that?
I think the thing with Cleverly is he wasn't a front runner at the beginning. He is the candidate of experience. He's a really good communicator. Arguably, if you're the Labour Party, James Cleverly wouldn't be the guy you would want them to pick, because actually it might be that talking to the wider country, James Cleverly is sort of more centrist. He's a good communicator. He's a well-known figure. He's kind of the sort of safe. He's the Hufflepuff. Does he sort of ignite the hearts of the Conservative Party? No. And what I'm trying to say is, like, the reason that Jenrick and Badenoch are the front runners is because Rob Jenrick has understood what he needs to do to appeal to the party, which is go hard on immigration. Rob Jenrick actually started out as a centrist, and I have spoken to people that are supporting him.
It was his time in the Home Office, wasn't it?
Yeah, but on the One Nation wing of the party. And I think there is a view amongst some of his supporters that while he's really hardcore on immigration, they think, number one, that's what they need to do anyway to win back both Lib Dem and Reform voters.
Yep.
And number two, on the other stuff, he will tack back to the centre.
But
right?
interesting you mentioned the Lib Dem voters, because, of course, a chunk of seats were lost straight to the Liberal Democrats. The only politician I think I've seen in their campaign literature directly referencing that is Tom Tugendhat. But that aside, the one takeaway I've got from this conference about Tugendhat is the amount of merchandise that they have. We've chucked out. I've thrown out, what was it, Tugendtan. There's literally fake tan that you can get branded. It's great. What else is there?
Well, I got given a Tugendhat, because sometimes they call journalists hacks. You see what they did there? I got it sent to my house. They sent me this box of stuff. There was a Tom Tugendhat pad that I can't use because obviously I can't walk around with a Tom Tugendhat pad. There was a Tom Tugendhat carry cup, quite handy actually because I do lose those a lot. And there was also a Tom Tugendhat lolly with his face on, which I was like, I cannot put a Tom Tugendhat lolly in my mouth, so that's not happening. I might give that to my children. There's some Tom Tugendhat M&Ms, and there was a Tom Tugendhat Pro Plus. Also odd.
Right, let's rise
I enjoyed
above the
that
fray.
section.
We've got the candidates, Beth. Who's going to be the next two to go out, do you think? Because
Oh,
I think it's a couple of weeks' time. It's a couple of weeks'
Why
time,
does
isn't
he
it?
ask me these things?
Go on, because it's a
I don't
difficult
know.
question.
Right, so, okay, I don't know the answer to that. You would argue that probably the membership would want a Kemi Badenoch, Rob Jenrick runoff.
Yeah.
But there is a world, I think, in which there is a Stop Kemi Badenoch campaign. I don't know how orchestrated it is. Trevelyan and Tom Tugendhat are both on 21 votes with MPs apiece. So the MPs pick the final two. And there's the rounds of voting are the 9th and 10th of October, right? So there is a world in which probably Tom goes out next.
Yeah.
Don't hold me to that. But I think Tom is more likely to go out next. And then if the Tom Tugendhat in a meaningful way vote folds into Cleverly and doesn't split, then Cleverly can jump over Kemi, and then it's a Rob Cleverly runoff.
The Conservatives are bloody good at infighting. You know, the knives come out at the drop of a hat sometimes. No matter who they choose, this time next year, I guarantee you, we will be talking about the knives being out for whoever the Conservative leader is. Or do you disagree?
There's a group of the party that are uncomfortable with Kemi and don't want her as leader, so that already gives you a bit of a problem, right? Yeah. And then with Jenrick, the kind of whole argument about leaving the European Convention on Human Rights, as a policy, I was talking to a very, very, very senior grandee who's still an MP the other day, who said to me, if he pursues this policy and takes the country out of the Convention of Human Rights, I will quit the party. Wow. And the point I'm making about that is this is a fault line in the party. And Katie Ball's a very brilliant editor of The Spectator.
It's Europe all over again.
At the Jenrick launch, you know, he's talking about this. This was a Jenrick launch, early September. We came back. He had a Jenrick breakfast. First day back, it was like we're all like kids coming back to school going, we're going to Jenrick breakfast, like the whole traumatised lobby, not ready for this, right? And she quite rightly pointed out to him, if you do this, you're going to split the party. But they might be good out power, get their shit together.
Basically, you're agreeing with me, Beth. And I think that's an appropriate point at which...
in a roundabout way.
I think that's an appropriate point for me to say thank you very much. I'll see you back at London.
Loved it.
And that is your lot for this edition of The Daily, and indeed for my time in Birmingham at the ICC with the Conservative Party conference. It doesn't finish until tomorrow, when we will be hearing from the 4 leadership candidates in some length. You can catch up with that online, skynews.com, or just switch on your telly. We'll see you again soon.